Last time we talked about how the I in voice was about integrating your data. So now what's the next step?
Well, Tom, now that we've integrated our data and we have our process defined, we're going to get into the actual product from Microsoft that we're going to be using to conduct our surveys, which is D365 Customer Voice.
So customer voice has a really easy interface to it. It's very intuitive. I think what people will find is that if they've used any Microsoft
Mm-hmm.
product in the last 5 years, that they're going to recognize it and feel familiar with it right away. As a matter of fact, I think it feels like the Forms interface.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in fact, Customer Voice is the continuation of a product that was at one time known as Forms Pro.
Ah,
So yeah.
okay. So that's why it feels
Yep,
familiar to me.
exactly.
Okay, and perhaps it'll feel familiar to some of our viewers
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
So,
So not only is it easy to actually create the survey, design it, make the questions, put them in different order, change that order around, whatever you want to do with it. Um, it's also easy to bring in the metadata, which is where it's kind of distinct from the baseline Microsoft Forms. Is you can bring in these kind of metadata points. So in our integrate data section, we talked about things like, do we have their company information? Do we have information like how long they've been with our customer? Those types of things. They can all be brought in as metadata within Customer Voice itself, and then you can use that within the survey. So it looks really cool to the viewer that in the actual question, it may reference their name or company or even a service ticket number if they are taking a survey that's related to customer service.
or perhaps a product that they bought.
Right.
Oh, interesting. So what it's done is it's further allows for that
Mm-hmm,
personalization,
mm-hmm.
and so as that helps me feel valued as the respondent and reduces the response burden on me. I know it was intended for me. They
Yeah,
understand what
yeah.
company I'm at, etc. Um, and then I would imagine that that can also lend to some breakout in the results as well if
Right,
we're using
right.
that. Now, I understand that in customer voice, there's some basic ability to analyze the survey
Mm-hmm,
results
mm-hmm.
right through customer voice and be able to produce some interesting looks at the data and some different ways of saying slicing and dicing
Yeah,
it. I know that it also though that data can be integrated into the Power BI suite
right.
and even more complex data analysis and visualization of the data as well. So you have sort of a straightforward um, version of it in the Microsoft Voice, and then something that could add some complexity if you need it in the Power BI.
Right, exactly. That's a great point, Mary. And one of the other things that Customer Voice itself, the tool, helps you to do is distribute your survey, and it does so in a couple of different ways. And what what we've talked about earlier in the process, we organized our process. That's going to inform which method we choose to use. So, for example, Customer Voice actually can mass email the surveys on its own. It can act kind of like a marketing platform, and you can put together your invitation email, send it out. It's tied back to that survey result, and so then your respondents can respond in that way. That's great if you have like a single point in time where you want all those surveys to come out. So, like, say you have a survey that's open a certain number of days, and you want to collect all the information. You want everyone to get the invitation at the same time. That's a great way to do it. The other way, the second way to do it is to use Power Automate, and that's where the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Voice as a Microsoft product comes into play because it integrates tightly with Power Automate. So then any kind of trigger that you can put into Power Automate can be used as something that generates a survey, sends out a link to the respondent. So for an example of that would be if you have a service case that is closed, you could have a survey generated to see what the customer thought of the service they received.
Ah, or you could even use maybe a QR
Mm-hmm.
code or a URL for a survey of, say, the general public or
Yeah,
some
yeah.
version of it so that if they scanned the QR code or clicked on a URL, that would generate a survey for that person to fill out.
Right, exactly.
Oh, that's a really great capability.
Yeah, yeah, and as you kind of alluded to, like all three of these options are very different use cases. Like they're for very different types of surveys. So it really widens the gamut of what you can actually do, and the types of surveys that you can do to have these options available for distribution. And the way that we use this tool, like the distribution, is all governed by the steps that came before, right? So as we were setting up our organization of the survey process, we thought about who we're gonna target, how we're gonna get to them, what we're gonna say, how we're gonna write the survey. Well, that all comes back into this stage. We're actually writing the survey according to that plan. We're distributing it according to that plan. We're using the data that we got from the I stage to help us identify respondents, create variables and metadata. So you can see at this point, it's all kind of coming together, and it's all becoming the thing that we're actually putting out there.
So really, the Microsoft customer voice is really about this sort of the design and the deployment,
Right.
and it's standalone. Well, first of all, it's licensed as a D365, so a Dynamics 365 product, which means it integrates with the whole Dynamics 365 suite, if you will. But it's also a very inexpensive product that if you're not in the Dynamics 365 suite, you can actually license that product. You can license the Microsoft Customer Voice as a product on its own.
Yeah, and you know, the ease at which you can have access to it is just kind of one more way that Microsoft's making it easy to get the actual survey part done. So they're taking a lot of the burden of creating the survey, getting it out, all those kind of processes out for you. But I guess the thing to kind of note is this is our fourth video, and now we're just coming to the product itself. So there's a lot of things that go into a survey that come before creating the survey itself and sending it out. So just because this is really easy, it doesn't mean that it takes off the work that you had to do in the organized stage, for instance.
This is very true. Yes, and I think as we've talked before, I think sometimes people want to short shrift those stuffs because now we've made it so easy to get a survey out. We have to go back to, but is it going to be a great one? Is it going to be a good one? And that focuses on the things that we've talked about in the prior videos.
Right, exactly. So once all of that happens, we'll be moving into our last stage in our next video. That's going to be pretty cool to see what happens after we've collected all our survey responses.
I'm looking forward to that.
All right, we'll see you then.